Hey, Queen. I'm Vieira Miles, and this is the Holistic Sister Circle podcast, a show where we hear the stories of soulful women all over the world dedicated to sharing insight into why holistic health is the future and what women should do today to ensure they have the necessary tools and resources to bring out their inner royal roots, assess their body, and remedy any illness from the comfort of their home. Y'all, we are setting the royal record straight, okay? If you'd like to connect with us further, you can follow us at The Holistic Sister Circle on Instagram and join the Holistic Sister Circle Facebook group for live interviews, collaborative Q&A, and exclusive training on how to build your wellness dream team. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. See you on the other side. Welcome to another episode of the Holistic Sister Circle. Today we have Kalinda with us, and she is an author, self-love coach who guides high-achieving women from living in stress to living in love. By transforming her life through putting love in action, Kalinda now empowers others to do the same, driven by a mission to change the world, one loving action at a time. Kalinda, we're so excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited as well.
And you know what? This conversation, it's very dear and near to my heart because I am your client.
I'm my
like,
client.
I'm that person. I am that high achieving woman who sometimes doesn't know or what to think when it comes to perfection. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to do it right. And then I find myself not doing it at all. And anyway, whole nother story. But I would love for you to just share with us what got you into this work? Why high achieving women?
Well, like you said, you're one of my clients. I would be one of my clients, right? I am definitely a high achiever, overachiever. But what got me into self-love coaching was my own journey, right? My discovery that, I didn't even know what self-love was many years ago. And what happened is I actually walked into a pole and caused such a bump on my head that it woke me up. And I really want to prevent that from happening to other women. No injuries, let's wake up beforehand. But what I noticed when I got home and wiped the blood off this colossal bump on my forehead was that I wasn't happy. I wasn't satisfied. And though I was doing great things, I'd moved from Canada to Turkey, then to the UK, etc. Still, there was an element of my life that I just, I didn't love it. And I was wondering, I thought to myself, Kalinda, if you actually really started to pay attention to what you're doing, what you're creating, and creating a life you love, just imagine what you could accomplish. And that began my journey. Fast forward many years later, and I definitely grew in my self-love. My self-development, just kept going. But I reached a plateau, and I recognized that I wanted to become love. I wanted to move beyond just feeling it to actually becoming it. So I operated at a state of love where my actions, my reactions, my communication all came from love. So that led me to write a book. And the core of my book, Living in Love, How to Create a Lifestyle of Love, Faith, Bliss, and Crazy Ass Manifesting, all in 31 days. The core of that is a challenge I gave myself where I do 10 acts of love per day for 31 days. And I did some acts of love for myself, towards others, and then just to raise my vibration and conscious awareness of love. And honestly, that changed my life. And what that did was made me realize that the simple acts of love can not only change my life, but can change others and the world as a whole, I believe. So as I progressed with this and doing those loving actions throughout the month, what I realized again was that all love starts with ourselves. And if I can help other women like me who have gone from, let's say, stressful living of continuously looking for maybe external validation, or the perfectionist that just doesn't necessarily, get everything done and then beat themselves up for it. If I could help those women, understand that their schedule can change, their life can grow easy and joyful and blissful simply by putting acts of love into action. And that's what really got me going, because I realized all love starts with ourselves. And so if I can get more people to love themselves, then I truly believe we can change the world to a more loving place.
Mm, I love this. Kalinda for president.
I think I'd have to be American first.
Oh, no, this is so interesting because I even remember when I was growing up, I do have a sibling and I'm the oldest of two of us. And my entire life, especially as a child, had always been, how can I do it right? How can I do it better? How can I make things happen? And I didn't realize how much pressure I was putting on myself at that time and how much external validation I was actually looking for. And I realized as I became older and relationships just with men, especially with men, I didn't know how to love outside of doing things.
Mm.
I felt like I always had to be doing something to express my love for them to say, okay, well, I'm satisfied with whatever you're doing. And those moments of rest or those moments of encouragement or expressing whatever is on your mind and just being vulnerable, it was very difficult for me to do that because the only type of love that I knew how to do was through action. So if I cooked for you, if I cleaned for you, if I washed your clothes, if I planned a trip, like those are action items that I felt like, okay, let's check this box off and this will make you feel good. But not everybody experiences love in that way. And sometimes people just really need you to sweet talk them. They really need you to tell them that you love them and share your feelings. And it was always so difficult for me to do that. With the clients that you have worked with and that you currently work with right now, have you found that this is something that is pretty normal when you are looking for that external validation, or is it just me?
It's definitely not just you. I think looking for seeking external validation is common, and especially with the clients I work with, and you know, the women that I know in my life as well, right? My friends, my family, and often it comes from, you know, like you mentioned, your childhood, right? Maybe that's where it started. Well, often that's where it does come from, is because perhaps we didn't receive the validation or the love and support from our parents, or even within school or any other setting where we may receive that. And so we constantly try to find it elsewhere. For me, growing up, I felt like I could never do good enough, right? There was always something wrong. I had to do it better, you know, could always find improvements. And so I constantly was just seeking to do better, adding more things to my list because perhaps I didn't accomplish that well enough. And well, on to the next one because, you know, I didn't receive enough love and support. And so eh, seeking external validation and putting unnecessary pressure on ourselves is incredibly common. And one thing I've noticed as well with a lot of my clients, and again, people and women in my life, is that this often comes from trauma or childhood that just wasn't, you know, I guess I don't want to say adequate or whatever, but it may not have been the support and love you needed or in the way you needed. And like you mentioned, you thought you were showing love in a way that perhaps you like to be shown, but your partners may not have. And so even though you thought you were doing loving things, and I'm all about doing love, you know, that may not have been seen as an act of love or sufficient to them. So, you know, there's also that aspect of it. What is it? I believe there's that book, of course, Languages of Love, right? So people interpret, give, and receive love differently. And it is very important to understand, especially in any sort of relationship, how does your partner or the people in that relationship, how do they receive love? What is loving for them? Because it may not be the same for what we need. Yeah.
No, that makes total sense. And you're right. I was probably thinking of it that way. I mean, even now, I'm still still learning and growing and evolving. And one of the things that I had noticed, so a couple of years ago, I went to a retreat in Jamaica, and right before we went to the retreat, I was in Florida. So I was in Miami, Florida for an event. And one of the things that we did in that event was we talked about the different types of foods that we enjoy. And based on those foods that we enjoyed, we also talked about the emotion that was connected to those foods. So for me, for example, I talked a lot about breads and pastas. And I remember having the conversation of what does that look like from an emotional perspective? And it was the ability to give and receive love. And it's so funny because you're talking about this right now. And this is something that I 100% have really struggled with. And for me, being in a zone of making sure I'm perfect and making sure I'm all put together has really shown me, honestly, in a lot of ways, a disservice to myself, to my community, to those who are around me, because I'm not in a place where I'm actually being authentic. And it took me so long to find my voice. Honestly, I don't really believe I really found it until I started the Holistic Sister Circle. It was like building my audience, building my community, helped me find my voice.
Mm.
And I would love to I would love for you to get into a little bit more too. Like, what does the aspect of giving and receiving love look like? And how are you ensuring that this is something that we continuously practice on a daily basis so we can show up in a more authentic way for the people that we love?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, I think, giving and receiving love is very personal, right? It's going to be different as we've just discussed for everyone, right? Um, for me, giving and receiving love, for me to receive love, I need to hear the words, right? And little actions also. I like people who do things or do things for me. And I think, again, a lot of this can stem from our childhood. What type of love were we exposed to growing up? Was it a stable family? Was it a separated family? Was there quarreling? Was there just lots of love always given physically, verbally? Or was there no love given? Or were, physical acts of love, which was often in my case, a hug was often given after, being yelled at. So it was this
Mm,
conflicted, you're going to scream at me, but then you're going to say, I love you and wrap your arms around me. So there's all these mixed messages. And part of that is, we need to learn how to decipher these growing up and then as adults. And like you said, it's a journey. It doesn't just, oh, I figured it out and that's it. You keep going and you keep figuring things out. I mean, when I hit my head on that pole all those years ago, like I said, I didn't even know self love existed. I had no clue. And so to get to that journey and to that point where I'm like, okay, I need to learn to love myself so I can actually properly receive it from others. And that is one thing that I think is absolutely essential. If you don't properly love yourself, how can you expect anyone else to love you? And how
mm,
can those relationships be authentic, right? Because if they're loving parts of you that you detest, or that could be very difficult and strange as well. So for me, I strongly believe that there has to be an element of self-love, or at least the desire to love yourself and the willingness to let that love grow when you do enter into relationships. Because my romantic life, up until I met my partner, the man of my dreams, just over a year ago, was a lot of unemotionally available people. And that's because I realized I was unemotionally available because I didn't truly love myself. So I was unable to authentically show them who is Kalinda, right? Who am I and what can I give to you when I can't even give that love to me? So it took that seed of self love to be planted and then nurtured and grown and developed to finally get myself to a point where, honestly, I didn't need love from anyone else. I still don't. Because I know for a fact I have enough love inside, but beyond what's inside me is what I call divine love. And I think when you reach a point where you do have so much love in your life, you do recognize that love is omnipresent. It is everywhere. It is available to you. You need to let it in. And so one of your questions is, okay, how can we maintain this daily? Like, how can we keep this kind of level of love in our lives? Easy. Do it. I know you're good at that. You just said you do loving things, but do them for yourself as well. Do them throughout the day, consciously and deliberately. Those are two of my favorite words. If we could consciously and deliberately do acts of love throughout our day, guaranteed you're going to have more love in your life. Like, because it's just impossible to not focus on love so much and not have it present. It impacts our energy field. It impacts how we talk to people, which therefore impacts how they return the conversation. If we're walking down the street and we've got a massive smile on our face because we're thinking of love and, the beautiful flowers that are around us or the sky above us, are the people that pass us by, are they not going to get that? Of course they're going to pick up on that energy. Often they'll smile at you and smile back, and then they smile at the next person. So it spreads. So, my guidance for anyone who wants to introduce more love in their life, just do more loving things. And I mean, like I said, I did 10 acts of love per day for 31 days. And some of those were multiple things, right? I hugged myself 3 times a day, send 5 messages of love to people. Love in the mundane, where I said any mundane activity, introduce love. That had to be a minimum of 3 times per day. Then there's these wonderful things I call luscious, luxurious love moments. And I had to do those 3 times a day. And those are moments specifically to love yourself. What makes you just go, that's luscious. Ooh, that's luxurious. 3 of those a day. So even if you don't go to that extent of doing so many, introducing a few activities into your routine that are loving towards yourself, to others, or just raise that vibration, guaranteed you're going to have love present in your life. And when love is present in your life, magic starts to happen. It just does.
This is so good. How did you even think of the types of just
Things
acts
to
of
do.
service or things to do every
Yeah.
day?
Well, I mean, it was a long, long list to begin with. I was sitting in my garden, and honestly, it started with the writing of my book because I knew I wanted to write a book on love, but I didn't know about what exactly. And sadly, this was during COVID, and I'd lost my sister. She passed away. My family was grieving in Canada. I couldn't get home. I was, trying to get this book on the go, and I lost all creative spirit, whatever. And about 3 weeks after that happened, I just said to myself, enough's enough, Kalinda. Go and write. Go sit in your garden and write. It doesn't have to be the book, just write. So I did that. I got all set up, got my cup of coffee, my pen, my paper, and nothing came. And then finally I asked, Kalinda, what do you want this book to be? And what do you want from life? And the answers flew out like so quickly. I want this book to spread love and I want to be love. And then all of a sudden it was like the intuition just kicked in, right? It went, okay, well, if you want to be love, how do you be love? And then it said, to be love, you must do love. And that's when I was like, I need a challenge. And being an overachiever, I love challenges. So I was so excited when I decided to create my own love challenge and put it into play. And like I said, some of the activities I chose, I already did. Like meditating is one, and I'm a faithful meditator daily. Loving kindness was another, and I just kind of started listing activities, and then realized I wanted that balance between love for others, love for myself, and just to raise awareness of love. And so I kind of just whittled it down and selected the 10.
When is your next challenge? Can we join?
You know what? That's actually part of my offerings, is to guide people through the challenge. It is part of my signature program, is a more bespoke challenge for them as part of it. But I also just offer guiding people through the 31 days of love. Those ones aren't bespoke love actions. They're the ones that I did and wrote about. So anyone can sign up at any time for that. Absolutely. And one day I would love to lead like a group of, I mean, it doesn't matter how many, but could you imagine, like, let's say even 100 or 1,000 people all doing 10 acts of love per day, consciously and deliberately, how that can change their lives, the lives of them around, like the people around them, and just on a larger scale.
So
Love
true.
truly is the answer. I do believe that.
100%. Wow, this is so incredible. I did want to go back for a second. I know you did breeze past the fact that you bumped your head. Could you? I'm like, like I wanted to talk about this in some way, but I was like, oh, this is so warm and fuzzy, and I love it. And like, what's the perfect moment to bring this up? But can you share that story with us? Like, what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So that, again, this is, gosh, going on almost 10 years ago. I was addicted to the news. Okay. So I used to, so badly that I used to get up every morning, turn on my favorite news channel, whichever I wanted to live stream that morning, pull out my yoga mat and salute the sun to some awful, horrible news that happened the day before. Like, I'm sorry, but those two activities shouldn't be combined. But that's how addicted I was. I needed that news feed first thing in the morning. So I was walking home in London from dinner. I got off the train and I'm walking home. And there was an interesting article I was reading on the train. And of course, I couldn't put my phone down. I had to continue to read it as I was walking home. So here I am, eyes glued to the screen, not looking anywhere else, not aware of what's happening around me. And that's when I just smack right into this square metal, gritty, hard pole. And I just kind of bounced back, did a quick look around. Okay, phew, no one saw me. Picked up my phone and went right back at it. Until about a half block later, I felt something oozing down my forehead. And that's when I went, oh, and the bump, like, as big as a ping pong ball. I have a picture of it because I went home and I took a picture. I was like, there's no way I can't have him record this. And that was it. I got home and I looked at that bump. I looked in my eyes and I said, Kalinda, you know, you're you're just coasting. You're doing
Mm,
great things. Sure, I got a job in London, moved to London. Before that, like I said, I got a job in Turkey, moved to Turkey. And I'd wanted to. These were all things I'd wanted and wished to do, and they were coming true. But I wasn't actually putting any effort into directing my life the way I wanted to. So that began the journey. And that started everything into learning, EFT tapping, getting into Louise Hay mirror work and affirmations. Um, a lot of, again, meditation. That night was the first night I started meditating regularly. I asked myself, I went inside and I just said, okay, what can I do? What can I start with to become more satisfied and happier in my life? And immediately it said meditate. And I have not, I think maybe I've missed a couple days since then. Like, to me,
wow.
meditation was probably the biggest self-love gift I could give because it's changed my life. But so that's essentially what happened, is that bump woke me up. Thankfully, it didn't do much damage. I did go to the hospital the next day and they said, nah, you probably had a mild concussion, but you're all right. Just go home and rest. But I didn't rest. Instead, I was like, okay, what else can I learn now? What can I dig into? That's when I got into law of attraction and all of that stuff. And it's just been nonstop ever since. How can I improve myself?
I love that. Can you share with us just from where you were to where you are today? What are just some of the things that you're looking to put together or do in the future as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I just launched my new signature program, which I'm really excited about. I want to write more on love. I would love to lead a large group of people through the 31-day challenge and just, have the impacts spread into the world. But I think the couple of books that I see within this series are Love at Work. So I would like
Mm,
to kind of crowdsource that one. The one I wrote on just on myself and doing this love challenge was, more personal. But this one, I want to ask people. I want you guys to do some acts of love at work and report back to me. Tell me how this has changed. Do you still hate your job? Do you still love your job? Right?
Kalinda, this would be such a great podcast.
Yeah, so that's the next, I think the next book is, love at work. What can we do? And I've been experimenting, in the past at my own day jobs on that and things like that. And then the next one is love in the family. Is there things that we can do to just create a more loving family? Because, sadly, often families can cause a lot of pain. And so I
Yeah.
want to be able to put a book out there that can cause a lot of love in families. So kind of, I would really like to focus on the writing again, get that couple more books out there. and then just, continuing coaching. Also, I'm, going to do some work at speaking events. So I'm looking into that and just getting on some bigger global stages. There's plans
I,
that I have. Yeah.
yes, I love that. You have to continue to keep us posted and share with us all of the amazing things that you're doing and continuously doing. And I'm so grateful that we had this opportunity.
I'm very grateful for this opportunity and to have met you and to be exposed to your podcast because I just think it's amazing. Really wonderful.
Thank you.
Mm.
Now, before I let you go, do you have any? I like to end with just some parting guidance. So anything for anyone, like I said, our show is dedicated to high achieving women as well and professional women. So with that being said, any parting guidance or gifts that you would love to share before you wrap up?
Honestly, I think the biggest gift you can give yourself is to just do loving things. Try and introduce one or two loving actions throughout your day and make a habit out of it. One of the easiest ones and ones that is very beneficial physiologically as well as emotionally is just hug yourself. And you can
Mm,
wrap your arms around you at any time of day. And you can, nuzzle
I love
your
that.
head into there as well and just feel good. And what I love about hugs or hugging yourself is that you can send that hug to someone else. I send my friend in Canada hugs all the time, and she and I will message each other. I just hugged you. Like it's just a beautiful way to raise more love in anyone's life. So I think if you're looking to just kind of have an easier attitude, less stress in your life, any anxiety and things like that, those are fear based, right? Whereas love, of course, is love based. So if you can just create a habit out of love by introducing more loving things, you will notice a difference. And if you need guidance on, well, oh, I don't have, or you think, oh, I don't have enough time in the day to add more stuff. Well, that's where you do the things like love in the mundane. Every time you wash your hands, wash them with love. That's not taking any more time, right? You talk to your friends already. Make sure that one of those messages is love. Tell them how much you love them and appreciate them. If you could send out a deliberate, conscious message of love to others each day, like it's one of the easiest ways to raise your vibration and, of course, raise others' vibrations as well. Yeah.
Mm,
Do more love.
I love it. I love it. And if anyone is looking to connect with you further, what does that process look like?
Oh, absolutely. They can email me, and that's at info@colindalatour.com, or they can go to my website, colindalatour.com. And all of my social media handles are Kalinda Latour, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and I'm starting up a YouTube channel as well.
Ooh, can't wait for that one too. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. Until next time.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. So thanks again.
Queen, thank you so much for tuning in. It truly warms our heart that you're taking the time out of your day to connect with us. If you'd like to connect with our guests further, you can find their information located in the description section of this episode. And if you found this episode helpful, share with another queen. And don't forget to connect with the Holistic Sister Circle on Instagram and Facebook. And until next week, stay blessed. Mwah.